Goodman's talking about the reinvention of the Olympics and this guy, the Baron Pierre de Coubertin, and what kind of vision this person has for what a competition like the Olympics could do at that moment in world history. And it's really this kind of inclusive notion about world peace and the ability of sport to promote that kind of a vision that animates the formation of the International Olympic Committee and then later the formation of National Olympic committees. And the Goodman reading does a really good job of setting out what the basic vision is for these games and how that vision kind of butts up against reality and how the limits of that vision produce all kinds of tension. And I want you to pay attention in that reading to when and where that happens and why, and also the particular kinds of venues that the Olympics can be held at. Where can the games take place, and why is there a tendency for them to be in certain places? This summer, we're heading into the Olympic Games in Rio. Rio will be the first South American city to host the Olympics. Mexico City was the first Latin American city, but the first South American city is going to be Rio in a short time here. So this will hopefully give you a little bit more of an informed eye if you're planning on watching those games. The Berner reading is really interesting because it's talking about Canada, which this class is about the history of sports and the United States. But it makes sense in that a sport that is very popular in the United States is Canadian in many senses. And Berner, I think, it's a nice way that I want you guys to be reading from a non-US perspective about the social significance of a sport. So you'll see obviously some parallels with the kinds of historical trends we've seen in the United States, especially around race and gender, but it's about the Canadian game, really. And it's about the capacity for hockey to serve as both a unifying force in Canada and as a place that really lays bare some of the divisions in Canada. So make sure you're paying attention to those divisions that Berner's talking about, and take that into your writing prompt. So the writing prompt this week is how, when, and why were the Olympics reinvented in modern form by Pierre de Coubertin? Drawing on what you've read about hockey's social significance in Canada, describe why it could be important in Canada's Olympic performances. So the first part of that question, I really want you to do a good job summarizing Goodman. What are the main points from that reading? How, when, and why the Olympics were reinvented in modern form? And then, given what you know from that reading, what kind of a platform the Olympics are, I want you to combine that with the Berner reading and tell me basically why would Canada's Olympic performances in hockey matter. So basically connect the two. Knowing what you know about hockey's social significance in Canada, why would the Olympics have a particular importance for Canadians to do well in Canada? So you might answer it in somewhat of a kind of duh way based on what you learn in the readings, but that's okay. I want you to go after the obvious points. So what kind of platforms are the Olympics? And knowing what you know about hockey in Canada, why would Canada's Olympic performance in hockey be particularly important? So get into some detail and make sure you really nail the significance of the Goodman readings on the how, when, and why of the Olympics. The final word I want to say about the content this week is in the Backstory Radio episode on Us versus Them. I want you to pepper your response, your writing prompt response, with some points that you learned from the Backstory Radio episode. It'll also be important for the quiz. But the podcast gives you a few really great examples of the venue for international competition that the Olympics presents. It's not just about the Olympics, but I'd like you to pay attention to those stories and bring them into your response. And especially keep that podcast in mind because we're going to be returning to the story of Tommy Smith and John Carlos next week. If you have any questions, as always, please send me an email, and good luck with everything this week.